bodies, ladies and gentlemen. At the start of this, the 188th session of the Legislature, I extend a warm personal welcome to the re-elected and newly elected members of your honorable bodies. 26 years ago, on January 4th, 1939, Governor Herbert H. Lehman appeared in this chamber under circumstances resembling those here today. Governor Lehman then began his seventh year as governor of New York, and now so am I. Governor Lehman was then confronted for the first time in his service as governor with a legislature in which the opposition political party had won majorities in both houses, and now so am I, also for the first time. And Governor Lehman on that occasion, in 1939, concluded his message to the legislature with words we might well apply to the present proceedings. This is what Governor Lehman said, and I quote him: "Differences of opinion in a democracy will always exist. They make for healthy government. In a spirit of earnest cooperation and sober analysis, they can often be reconciled. It is unnecessary, I'm sure, to urge upon you the necessity of laying aside all considerations of political expediency and of political advantage. Our solemn duty must always be to seek the welfare of the people. Ours is a sacred trust. In its fulfillment, I stand ready at all times to advise and to confer with you. I'm confident that we will be motivated solely by a common desire to serve the people of our state." So spoke Governor Lehman in 1939. And it is in this same spirit and with these same objectives that I come before your honorable bodies today to present my legislative program for 1965. You have no choice but to give the solution to the problem of water pollution top priority. Rising costs of construction, the vast future needs caused by increased population and obsolescence of existing facilities mean that action is essential now before the costs soar beyond our reach. I therefore propose a $1 billion state bond issue to finance a 6-year program for pure waters in New York State. I propose that the state assume 30% of the cost as its share. And I call on the federal government to pay its full 30% share and to stop discriminating against larger cities and urbanized states as it does under existing laws. Furthermore, I recommend that the state be prepared to finance not only its own share, but to pre-finance the full federal share pending the necessary federal action. State, federal, and local governments should encourage industry through tax incentives and other measures to build the necessary industrial pollution control facilities and in some cases to change industrial processes in order to end pollution from this source as well. Finally, the state should intensify enforcement, administration, and research by the following: appropriating the funds to pay 1/3 of the cost of operating and maintaining local treatment facilities as authorized under the program enacted in 1962, establishing an automated water quality monitoring system, and conducting additional research into pollution control methods. This is the first time since I became governor that I have recommended a state bond issue drawing upon general revenues for debt service. I do so now only because of the urgency and the magnitude of the problem of water pollution, the long-range benefits to be secured, and the staggering costs and crises that would result from further delay. Fortunately, the state's credit has been scrupulously maintained for just such a purpose. Tax-supported state debt has been reduced during this administration to the point that debt service amounts to only 1% of the budget. The time to act is now. B, water supply. The water pollution problem was put into even sharper focus by the drought last year. Paradoxically, drought-stricken communities were often unable to use the waters that flowed by their doors due to the pollution condition of these waters. Although in a normal year we received 40 inches of rainfall, by late last year, drought had become such a problem in upstate counties that the Civil Defense Commission emergency stockpile of pipe and pumps loaned to communities for bringing in emergency water supplies had been all but exhausted. I therefore have taken emergency action measures to purchase additional pipe, pumps, chlorinators, and related devices that can move and purify water using $100,000 of state funds and a like amount of matching federal funds. A most unusual and exciting project is that of using nuclear energy to obtain fresh water from the sea, a project intended to meet the particular water supply problems of Long Island, as well as the need for additional electrical power. I therefore will recommend in my executive budget an appropriation of $3,500,000 as an advance to the New York State Atomic and Space Development Authority to construct a nuclear desalination plant on eastern Long Island, a plant that will produce 1 million gallons of pure water a day and 2,500 kilowatts of electricity. No nuclear desalinating plant now exists anywhere in the world. This project will therefore demonstrate a new peaceful use of atomic energy with application not only here at home, but also in many of the Earth's underdeveloped regions. Such a demonstration here in New York will A. Commuters. The form and availability of commuter transportation facilities vitally affect the future growth and development of the state's greatest metropolitan area. In this connection, we face two urgent transportation problems: the Long Island Railroad, the nation's largest rail passenger service, and the bankrupt New Haven Railroad. In 1966, the 12-year statutory redevelopment status of the Long Island Railroad expires, and a solution to this problem must be found. I'm awaiting a report of a special committee I appointed to make recommendations to me on the future status of the Long Island Railroad. Following receipt of this report, I intend to transmit to your honorable bodies, later in this session, a special message on the future of the Long Island Railroad and on other related rail commuter problems in the New York metropolitan area, including the special problem of the commuters who rely upon the New Haven Railroad. Statutory minimum wage was enacted in 1960 on my recommendation. Last October 15th, the state minimum rose to $1.25 an hour, the same as the prevailing federal minimum. This raised the pay of about 164,000 workers in New York State. I'm deeply concerned, however, about those families in our state who must rely upon a single wage earner, paid at the present level of minimum wages. Hard-working heads of such families must, all too often, turn to a second job or even to public assistance to make ends meet. At the same time, it is a vital necessity for New York industry to remain competitive. A prime objective is that existing job opportunities be retained and that new job opportunities be created here in this state. The danger to be avoided is making New York such a high-cost island that expansion of job opportunities is hurt. Plainly, it is in the best interest of New York's working men and women that necessary increases in minimum wages shall apply to competing states as well as to ourselves. I therefore urge that the legislature memorialize the Congress to increase the federal minimum wage to $1.50, and that your honorable bodies increase the state's minimum wage to $1.50 an hour, effective simultaneously with similar federal action. E. Part First, elementary and secondary education. State aid to public schools has been based since the 1962 Diefendorf Commission study on a formula under which the state and the local school districts share in actual operating costs up to $500 per pupil. The percentage borne by the state varies according to the relative financial capacity of the school district. The median school operating cost was approximately $500 per pupil when this formula was adopted. It is expected, however, to reach $600 in this school year. I therefore request your honorable bodies to raise the current expenditure ceiling for determining school aid from $500 to $600 per pupil, and to make appropriate adjustments in the statutory floor to provide for flat grant districts. This change would provide an additional $97 million in state aid to public schools in the next year, of which $37 million would go to the... To help make this possible, we have more than tripled state assistance for local libraries in the past 6 years. Progress in the development of library programs has been significant. Subject: air pollution. The prevention of further pollution of the air we breathe and the detection, abatement, and control of existing air pollution are health measures of the highest importance. 5 diseases in particular are circumstantially related to air pollution. They are cancer, heart disease, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and airborne allergies. Last October 30, the New York State Air Pollution Control Board established an air quality control system, which has been 3 years in developing. This system is designed to eliminate hazards to health and is the first of such broad scope by any state. This situation not only represents human tragedy, but a major source of crime. The problem is particularly acute in the New York City area, where almost 1/2 of the addicts of the nation are estimated to live. By statute and traditionally, the major responsibility for combating illicit traffic in drugs rests with the federal government. For 3 years, I have been urging the federal government to meet its responsibilities by, first, establishing a federal narcotics treatment facility in the New York City area. 2, drastic revision and modernization of federal laws relating to narcotics. 3, adoption of a cost-sharing formula similar to that of the federal urban renewal programs, with 2/3 federal financing from federal funds and 1/3 from state and local government funds. 4, mounting an intensive research program on the cause and cure of addiction. 5, more intensive federal law enforcement and a substantial increase in federal enforcement personnel. Federal action on establishing a program of state assistance through contractual grants to established community groups for the inpatient treatment in halfway houses of addicts referred by state hospitals and community agents. Second, providing state assistance for the operation of a sheltered workshop to assist treated addicts to regain or gain the skills necessary for their return to useful employment while undergoing aftercare. Establishing a program of 50% state aid for New York City's Community Mental Health Board for narcotic outpatient facilities. Establishing, in conjunction with New York City Community Mental Health Board, special housing facilities for homeless addicts upon their return to the community from inpatient care. And providing assistance and encouragement to community organizations for the establishment and expansion of services presently rendered to addicts in communities having high rates of addiction. Housing. During the past 6 years, low-rent public housing. The immediate and compelling needs for low-rent relocation housing and low-rent housing for the aged in almost all of our urban areas must be recognized and must be met. Accordingly, I strongly recommend the enactment, subject to the approval of the people, of legislation increasing the public housing loan and subsidy authorization by at least $200 million. Second, capital grant low rent assistance. 1, mandatory safety inspection of all new cars. 2, mandatory cancellation of new driver's licenses for serious violations. 3, suspension of driver's licenses for excessive speeding. 4, inclusion of all bail forfeitures in New York State involving moving violations for purposes of revocation and suspension of driver's licenses for persistent violations. 5, inclusion of all convictions for moving violations in contiguous states and all New England states for purposes of suspension or revocation under the Commissioner's point system. 6, require that all school bus drivers have Class II chauffeur's licenses, but make an exception for small vehicles such as station wagons. 7, providing by interstate compact for guaranteeing on a reciprocal basis the appearance of any driver who receives a traffic summons in a member state. Service. New York State's dedicated civil servants are the backbone of the state government, an indispensable element of effective service to the public. This administration, with the support of your honorable bodies, has achieved steady progress in making state employment more attractive and more nearly competitive with private industry and its opportunities in order to maintain and improve the quality of public service. To continue this progress, 1, I shall announce shortly administrative action to protect the interests of state employees whose jobs are affected by automation. 2, I urge your honorable bodies to enact the following improvements in the state retirement program. A, completing the trend recent years toward making retirement system non-contributory by making it entirely non-contributory for all state employees. B, reducing the minimum pension vesting period from 15 to 10 years. C, providing for the payment of vesting pension benefits at age 55. And D, reopening the age 55 retirement plan for 1 year. I also urge that you make permanent the revisions of the Common Law enacted in 1963, which provide more realistic and therefore more effective penalties to enforce the prohibition of strikes by government employees. C, per capita. Conclusion. Join in remembering the full size and the true meaning of the challenge to free government today. The range of problems before us, from water supply to workmen's compensation, from narcotics control to bridge building, is so great and varied that it can all too easily confuse and blur the serious sum of all our labors. This sum, the abiding purpose that must inspire all men of goodwill, regardless of party, is to provide the creative power is to prove the creative power of free men to direct their own destiny in a revolutionary world of change. This destiny means the guarding of liberty, the assurance of justice, and the enrichment of human life. And it requires that we prove ourselves truly, at one and the same time, servants of the people trusting us and masters of the forces testing us. In meeting our responsibilities, we're confronted with the reality of the need for additional revenues. Facing this reality and meeting these needs will call for a high order of statesmanship, cooperation, and courage on the part of both political parties and from both the legislative and executive branches of government. Together, we face the challenge of proving that representative government and our two-party political system can work constructively in the service of all the people, enhancing their lives and protecting their liberties. This challenge is as old and as memorable as the words of Lincoln when he said, "Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We will be remembered in spite of ourselves. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. We must think anew. We must act anew. In this spirit, with divine guidance, let our work together begin, progress, and prevail." Thank you very much.
expressing the thanks of the members of the Senate and the members of the Assembly for the hospitality which has been provided on this occasion, and reminding the members of the Senate that pursuant to a resolution previously adopted in that House, we will return now to the Senate chamber to consider matters pending before the Senate. I do hereby declare this joint session adjourned.